Oh boy, we're on the air. I don't know if we made it last week.
It's still on there. I don't know why it stopped. You can't have gotten 70 degrees over.
Thank you for coming. I guess from now on, this class will be known as for young people over age 35.
Okay, not just the old folks class.
That's not the old, it's the young folks over age 35.
All right.
But anyway, we're glad.
Why?
Oh, they're starting a new class
In three weeks.
for people under age
Under age
35.
of 35. There's no any under age of 40 here.
So I can remember when some of us were in that younger class, single adult, and all kinds of things. But anyway,
So Barbara's gonna be going away for 2 weeks.
oh,
For
Yeah,
training.
Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma.
to Oklahoma they're sending you? Wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
leaving tomorrow.
we're in Oklahoma City or
Norman.
Norman.
Norman, Oklahoma.
I fly into Oklahoma, then they have a shuttle to take me to.
Wow. Well, hope that's beneficial and safe.
We'll see, yes, they,
Is it just one weekend in between, or does it cover the second weekend too?
what's the second one?
Really?
No, I come home on the 14th, that Saturday morning, on the
Okay.
14th. I fly in.
And then where's your new job gonna be? Somewhere different?
In Chicago.
Yeah,
No, I'm not moving to Norman.
you don't know yet where, or?
I was sort of juggling two jobs. That's what,
Mhm.
one was the detail, but the detail stopped. So now I got the one job, and the training for that is in Norman.
Mhm.
And, it's a conundrum because they teach you all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of information you never use for your job. So I'm thinking, why are they still doing it that way? Anyway, we're gonna have
That's
that
what those people
discussion
do.
later.
That's what their job is, to teach you.
To teach me all this stuff. They said a lot of stuff, but you don't need it to do it.
Okay.
Well, I hope it means a promotion.
I would like that, but no, it's not it. That's all right.
Right.
Anyway, we were looking at Second Kings last time, and let's see. We were talking about Naaman, I think, when we ended up, and some of the things we can learn from the story of Naaman. It's a story about faith, but it's a story about faith that needs to be acted on. Naaman actually had faith, or at least he was willing to look and see if the story of the young Israelite girl was right, that he could be healed in Israel. But he learned that he had to do it God's way. He thought healing might come about through something that he was familiar with. But he learned that he had to do what God said, wash in the Jordan 7 times. The Jordan is a muddy river, and he was thinking of some cleaner rivers back where he came from. And that's the lesson that we can take, isn't it? We have to do it God's way. The world teaches us that the things we want, we have to earn and work for. But the Lord teaches us that the things that are most important come not because we've earned them, but because we've had faith in God and done what He says. We know that we need to be baptized. Some people think, well, that's earning salvation because you allow yourself to be dipped in water. But it's just obedience and submitting ourselves. So that's one of the lessons of Naaman. Do it God's way. Act on faith. God could have just healed Naaman any step along the way. The prophet could have come out and healed him, but God wanted him to do something to show his faith and obedience. And I think that's true today also. God wants us to do something, not that we earn salvation, but that we show appreciation and a humble spirit. So, I don't know. What else? Do what God says. What else do we learn from Naaman? What happened? What? And this is something that he can be commended for, because when he was blessed with healing from his leprosy, what was the result?
He wanted to give a gift.
He was grateful.
Yeah.
He was grateful, and he sought a practical way of trying to show his gratitude. The prophet had told him to wash in the Jordan, and so he wanted to give him some gold and some clothes and all kinds of things. And that's a good example to follow, gratitude. We receive blessings. We can thank God through prayer. Are there other ways in which we can thank God for blessings received? What do you think? Well,
Use them in a pleasing way.
what's that?
We can use what he's given in a good way, in a pleasing way.
Okay, yeah, you understand that what we have comes from God, and use it to please God. I'll tell you another way that I appreciate very much as treasurer. I just got a check from an organization because someone had made a gift and put the church down to receive a matching gift. So not only do we get a nice donation from one of our members, but we also got a check as a matching gift. And I'll tell you that we can use it. We have had some people move away and so on that gave, and we are, we're not meeting our budget. We've had to postpone making some of our contributions to the missions that we support. So I've just mentioned that so that it is known that financially we're not meeting our budget. That's the bottom line. Anyway, but gratitude is one of the things. One of the interesting verses to me is 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 18. I've always wondered about this. I don't know the answer. Let's see. This is Naaman. He's talking to the prophet. The prophet says, "I won't accept anything from you as a gift." He wanted to make the donation, and even though Naaman urged him, he refused. Verse 17, "If you will not," said Naaman, "please let me, your servant, be given as much earth as a pair of mules can carry, for your servant will never again make burnt offerings and sacrifices to any other god but the Lord." That's interesting. I wonder if he kept that up. I guess we can assume. "But may the Lord forgive your servant for this one thing. When my master enters the temple of Rimmon to bow down, and he is leaning on my arm, and I bow there also. When I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord forgive your servant for this. What do you think? Was that a valid request? Is that something that he should have said, I'm just gonna stand up for my belief. I'm not even gonna go into that temple of Rimmon. I'm gonna tell the king that Rimmon doesn't exist.
Well, he still has an obligation to his master who worships that particular God, and apparently the guy is old and he has to help him bow, so he has to bow too.
Okay,
But I think he's letting them know his heart is not in it. Maybe that's the best I got.
any other thoughts on that? You know, it just seems, you know, like today we could say, forgive me, Lord, because I'm doing some things that are not in accordance with your will. I don't know if we have a real parallel in our own kind of lives.
If a person, you know, like say, if you're in a situation where if you stand up and say, you know, I'm not going to compromise my beliefs, then, well, you could be executed or something.
Well,
Would it hurt? Yeah, I mean, you know, again, Paul didn't back down on his book.
yeah,
You know, there's the principle of surviving to fight another day.
okay,
You know, okay, if I continue, if I live, I can perhaps do some good. Maybe I can influence people in
yeah,
the future. But you know, if I die right now, then of course, if you sacrifice for your faith, you could become an example
Yeah,
for other people to look at and admire. So it's kind of a difficult
it is.
thing.
I don't know exactly what the consequences would have been if Naaman had done something different. He may have lost his position and been executed, you know. Some of these foreign kings were kind of extreme in that area. But I always wondered about that. It's sometimes we have to make tough choices. Like you say, do we compromise just to save ourselves, or you know, is it better to stand up for what God? I don't know what. Sometimes we face in the work that we do pressure to go out drinking or to take some stuff that's not good, or to go places that we know are not healthy places. Anyway,
Well, I know people who have quit jobs because they had to work on Sunday. Remember back in the day,
Okay.
nobody you couldn't work on Sunday, and I know people who have done that. And they didn't seem like they, you know, the wife wasn't happy, but if they weren't financially any worse off, like she thought they'd be, because he had that belief.
yeah,
So I know people have done that.
yeah,
I think that is a mistake if you are in a job which maybe your region is not, accepting to, and if you don't have the proper job, for you to quit that job, it brings a lot of temptation and problem to you later. Because you need to find a proper job, either in your congregation to help you out to get a proper job before you leave the job that you are working to. One guy who was working in the brewery when they make a drink in Ghana, because when he was baptized to the church, he decided to leave, to quit the job. We advise him to think wisely because it's not, the church is not pressuring you to do that. And the Bible is not pressuring you to do that. You are not against anything. You are working there, but right now, you need to look for another job before you leave. So once the Bible said, this thing is not good for me, that means it's not good for me to stay in or to work there. So he quit the job. He suffered a loss. He later regretted it. But as I'm seeing for Naaman here, Elisha is the one who let Naaman, I don't know how to put it. He just want to humble Naaman, Elisha. He just want Naaman to, there is no ceremonial, gods or this thing here for him to come to. But rather, the God that we are serving here is a command that just follow. Humble yourself and follow. So Elisha is the one who humbled Naaman because he is coming with a different way. That's why he came and fall on the king. He think that he will go by the traditional way. But Elisha humbled him because Elisha didn't come outside to meet him. He just sent servant to him that go to the river, wrap yourself in for 7 times. He just want to humble him. So Elisha is the one who humbled him, Naaman. Naaman didn't humble himself. He came with a different purpose, but Elisha did. That is the reason why when he heard the voice of Elijah that I should go to the river, he was saying that even I have a better river in my country where I'm coming from. What about this one? You see? So, but Elisha wanted to show him differently that where you are, you have to obey the rules and the regulation there if you want to be healed.
What does Elisha say after Naaman makes that request that he be forgiven for going into the temple of Rimmon? What does Elisha say?
Go in peace.
Go in peace.
Yeah.
So maybe that tells us something about the God's view of that situation. He's not an Israelite, but all people are responsible for recognizing and worshiping the true God. Anyway,
Do you think he might have had pride that kind of got in the way? I don't know.
that's exactly what
Okay,
Jacob
he might have had a
was-
little egotism there too.
he needs
He's
to
just
be.
higher up, a guy,
needs to
and
be
he
humble.
wants to be treated like royalty. And he's not being treated like common man. He doesn't like that.
He did it
There's
to
a
be
lesson in
humble.
pride right there.
And sometimes that's what we need to be humbled. So, anyway, what's next? That's Naaman. And that's one of the outstanding miracles that we read about.
I would say it's his greatest miracle.
Well,
I think he's known for that miracle probably more than
hard to rank things.
I know it's hard to say. He did a lot of miracles, but I think that was his greatest.
That's right. That's right. Elisha had a series of miracles, including one that we overlook sometimes. He fed people. Chapter 4, verse 42. Turn back. This guy did a lot of things.
Sounds kind of like Jesus, doesn't he? That's what he reminds me of.
That's exactly what I was getting at.
Feed 1,100 people there. That's what Jesus did.
Healing people. He raised a young person from the dead.
Very similar.
Here, with 20 loaves of barley bread, give it to the people to eat. How can I set this before 100 men? But Elisha answered, give it to the people to eat, for this is what the Lord says, they will eat and have some left over. Then he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over. Almost exactly when Jesus fed 5,000.
It's kind of like he's a forerunner of Christ
Yeah,
in this regard, anyway. You know, foreshadowing Christ.
so anyway, that leads us to question 6 of our question sheet. What lessons did Elisha teach during sieges of Samaria? Samaria is the capital city of the northern kingdom of Israel. And there was a constant conflict between Israel and the surrounding nations, sometimes with Judah also, but also primarily at this time with the old versions called the Syrians or the Aramites or Arabians, anyway, not Arabians, Arams. What do we learn? Turn over to 2 Kings chapter 6. And there's more miracles.
The floating basket.
And then we get to a famous one. The king of Aram was at verse 8. The king of Aram was at war with Israel, and he was going to set up his camp. And so the king of Israel found that. And anyway, this enraged the king of Israel, enraged the king of Aram. He demanded, "Will you not tell me which of us is on the side?" He felt there was some disloyalty. Anyway, they went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh, my Lord, what shall we do?" He panicked because they're in a kind of a siege environment. They're surrounded by the enemy. And what does Elisha say? "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Seems illogical. There's a bunch of Aram people out there, a big army, but Elisha prayed, "Oh Lord, open his eyes so he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike these people with blindness." So he struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. So I'm sure if you've been going to church for quite a while, you've heard some sermons on that one. Open his eyes, help him to see that those who are with us are more than those who are with them.
Right.
In other words, the Lord's army is the bigger one, no matter what. And here, he's literally able to see the Lord's army in the form of chariots of fire. But that doesn't always happen to us. Sometimes we're surrounded by difficulties, and we ask the Lord, we need to have faith that the Lord is more powerful than anything that we might be worried about. That's the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah. God provides for his children in a miraculous
God
way.
provides for his children. Here, even though the nation of Israel is not led by a faithful king, still the Lord is patient with them, hoping they will repent. And in this case, saves them from invasion and probably serious consequences from the king of Aram or Syria. So that's a good lesson. But it kind of repeats itself. We could talk all day about that, but what happens later, that siege ends. Elisha, the king, says, "Shall I kill them?" "Do not kill them," he answered. "Would you kill men you've captured with your own sword anyway? Set food and water before them so that they may eat and drink and then go back to their master." So he prepared a big feast for them, and they returned. And the bands from Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. But sometime later, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, that's a guy who we've run into several times. It's probably more of a title than one individual. There's probably more than one king, Ben-Hadad. Anyway, sometime later, this is verse 24, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, mobilized his entire army and marched up and laid siege to Samaria. There was a great famine in the city. That's the purpose of a siege, starve them out. And the siege lasted so long that a donkey's head sold for 80 shekels of silver. That's a lot. And a donkey's head is not the most pleasing item of food. It's not like a beefsteak.
Lean meat.
And a quarter of a cab of seed of pods for 5 shekels. Anyway, food is very expensive. As the king of Israel was passing by, the woman said, "Help. If the Lord does not help you, where can I get help for you? Give up your son so we may eat him." In other words, they're just at the point of cannibalism. So almost, it's a horrid situation. We'll find that later in the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD. But anyway, the king tore his robes and he had sackcloth. "May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, remains on his shoulder." He's ready to execute Elisha. Maybe he thought that Elisha should have come out and saved the city. I don't know exactly what the situation was there. But Elisha was sitting in his house. The elders were sitting with him. Don't you see? Elisha said to the elders, "Don't you see how this murderer," referring to the king, "is sending someone to cut off my head?" Bolt the door against him. Anyway, this disaster from the Lord. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer? Well, what's the result of this? Elisha said, chapter 7, verse 1, "Hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Lord says. About this time tomorrow, a seah of flour will sell for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria." In other words, price of food is going to come way down. In other words, something's going to happen. The officer whose arm the king was leaning on said, "Look, even if the Lord should open the floodgates of heavens, could this happen? You will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat any of it." So how does that happen? It happens in a strange way. In the previous one earlier, God caused the army of the Arameans to go blind. How does he deal with this situation? So it's completely different. Anybody recall that?
Well,
Because
they thought that there was large army.
Yeah,
But it was, um, they had heard a lot of noise and thought it was an army, but it wasn't. So I don't know where the Lord caused them to hear all this
Yeah.
noise, and then they all left.
yeah.
They left all that stuff.
They thought the king of Israel had hired Hittites, Egyptians to attack us. So they got up and fled, abandoned their tents and all their supplies. So that's how the Lord saved the city. But the story we see not from, well, we see that eventually from the vantage point of the king, but initially, as we read along, we see it from the vantage point of who? Some lepers,
Yes,
people with leprosy. They were hanging around the gate of Samaria, hoping for a handout. And then they say, well, you know, we're gonna die here. Let's go to the camp of the Arameans and see if we can get some food. And when they go there, they find the soldiers are all gone. And all the supplies are sitting there. And so they're engorging themselves with food because they've been starving. And then what? And here is the source of the sermon that comes out of this story. Verse 9. So the lepers, they're gorging themselves in the camp of the Syrians. And they say to each other, we're not doing right. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. Let us go at once and report this to the royal palace. So they go back to the gate of Samaria, and they tell them that we went into the Aramean camp and not a man was there. The gatekeepers shouted the good news, and the king says, well, I don't know, this may be a trick, but they take some men and they find out it's not a trick. And so they are able to relieve the famine. And what's the sermon there? And maybe you've heard sermons from those verses over the years. It's that say exactly what they say. We're not doing right. This is a day of good news, and we're keeping it to ourselves.
Get the good news out.
Let's get the good news out. Don't just keep it to yourself. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. In other words, we have good news for people. The good news is the gospel of Christ. And so we need to tell people. People are, in a sense, starving, and surrounded by the enemies of God. But it's up to us to get the news to them. Just like when they went and told it, at first they wouldn't believe them. But finally they sent some people to check on it, and it came to be true. But the point is, if you have good news and you don't tell it, it's kind of you're the one at fault. If you tell people and they don't believe you, then it's kind of their problem. But we have good news, we need to tell it in whatever way that we can. Sure, a lot of people are not going to believe it, but some are going to say, well, I'll try this. And anyway, that's the lesson, the sermon from that miracle which took place in the gate before the gates of Samaria with Elisha. the profit involved. So, anyway, that's the answer to question 6. What lessons did Elisha teach during sieges of Samaria? Have faith in God, yes, but we can learn something also from these outcasts. These are lepers. They've been excluded from the fellowship, and yet they feel an obligation to tell the people that have excluded them. So anyway, it's kind of shows the situation in the extreme. Maybe there's people that have mistreated you, that haven't been very nice to you, but we still have the obligation to preach the gospel and to tell them about Jesus. Some may scorn you and, be unfriendly, but still there's that obligation there. How often do we sit down and tell ourselves, I need to do more? Anyway.
I like how Patrick said it Wednesday night. We have a responsibility to give people a hearing, of Christ.
Yeah.
And whether they accept it or not, well, that's
right.
their responsibility. But we're to present somehow Christ to people. And sometimes all you can do is invite people to church, I think, because some people don't want to talk about it. But you can invite them. We can all invite people to church whether they want to come or not. Well, that to me is a basic thing. Invite people and try to go beyond that. But I think that's kind of what he was saying. Give them a hearing.
Well, the next question jumps into the matter of the kings again. Question 7. Was Jehu a reformer? Who in the world was Jehu? The nation of Israel has, if you have your chart of kings, you could find him. And over on the right side, there's been a lot of kings of Israel. Jeroboam, Ahab has been there. Anyway, then they've all been, they not following the Lord. They did evil in the sight of the Lord. And so the Lord raises up a man to take over the kingship of the northern kingdom. And his name is Jehu. He's a former servant of the king. Is he a reformer? Is the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay, 2 Kings 9, 1 through 10. He does a lot of good.
One of the good guys.
He's anointed king of Israel in place of Jehoram, Ahaziah. Take this fast. He's anointed. Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, not the Jehoshaphat of the southern kingdom. Anyway, what does he do? He's a man of action. He comes into this, and he kills the king, existing king Joram, and Ahaziah of the southern kingdom. Let's see. I always remember this. Verse 17 of chapter 9. When the lookout standing on the tower in Jezreel saw Jehu's troops approaching, he called out, I see some troops coming. Get a horseman, Joram ordered. Send him to meet them and ask, do you come in peace? The horseman rode off to meet Jehu and said, this is what the king says. Do you come in peace? What do you have to do with peace, Jehu replied. Fall in behind me. And another lookout is sent. What do you have to do with peace? And then the lookout reported, He's reached them, but he isn't coming back. The driving is like that of Jehu, son of Nimshi. He drives like a madman. Anyway, so eventually Joram gets killed. Jezebel gets killed. Ahab's family gets killed. Chapter 10. If you just read the captions as you go along, you see all of the things that Jehu is doing. He, chapter 10, he kills the family of Ahab, all of them. That's the traditional way that the dynasty changed. The new king gets rid of all of the relatives of the old king because they might be a threat, innocent or not. Then Jehu brought all the people together and said to them, Ahab served Baal a little. Jehu will serve him much. He summoned all the prophets of Baal, and as if he was going to hold a great sacrifice to Baal, but he was acting deceptively in order to destroy the ministers of Baal. And he does bring robes and then look around, see that no servants of the Lord are with you, only ministers of Baal. So as we read down in chapter 10, Jehu had posted 80 men outside. If any one of you lets any of the men I'm placing in your hands escape, it will be your life. So they killed all the prophets of Baal. And let's try to see if it mentioned how many of them. So Jehu destroyed Baal worship in Israel. However, and there's the kicker. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit, the worship of the golden calves at Dan and Bethel. And the Lord said, because you've done well in accomplishing what is right in mine eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab all I had in mind to do, your descendants will sit on the throne of Israel to the 4th generation, which is not bad. Yet Jehu was not careful to keep the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He did not have turned away from the sins of Jeroboam. In those days, the Lord began to reduce the size of Israel. Hazael, he's there. Takes takes the land of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh. Where were they? East of the Jordan River. So those tribes and those areas are taken away by the enemy. So if you look on your chart of kings, it will show Jehu as yellow. He's partially a reformer, but not totally a reformer. He gets rid of Baal worship, but he will not go back worshiping the Lord of Israel. And so he's mentioned as, partially good. Anyway, that's Jehu, he's famous. And his son, Jehoash, and Joash, and Jeroboam, their second, are on the throne. So that's a good place to evolve. Israel is not headed in a good direction. They're starting to lose some of their territory, and we'll find out what happens to them next time. We're going to meet some other kings, and we'll talk about them. Joash and Hezekiah, Josiah, Zedekiah. Those are kings of the southern kingdom of Judah. And we'll take up their careers and see what we can learn from them. as we round out Second Kings. Thank you.
In a couple weeks.
I'm trying to figure out when to
I think we're
pass
smelling the
on
Korean lunch.
my other children.
What?
I think we're smelling the Korean lunch.
I know, I'm getting hungry, that's why I got some
Okay,
candy
he doesn't
here.
want it. I said Barbara has lunch time. If you want, they could probably invite him.
Yeah, that's what I feed them all the time. They go and get lunch.
He was asking me, why don't we have the lunch anymore, once a month? I said, well, when I first came, it was every week.
I know, right?